couple of minutes before we start, but there are, of course, housekeeping, because it wouldn't be anything if it wasn't housekeeping. We don't expect the fire alarm to go off. If it does go off, leave by the fire exits. They're clearly marked here, here, and here. There won't be any oxygen or anything like that coming down. So you can't hear me. Let me get a little bit closer. So, I think it is working. Matt, yeah? I'm just perhaps not enunciating, sorry. So we're not expecting a fire alarm. So if the fire alarm does go off, please go exit by the fire exits. This event will be live streamed, so please be aware of that, and photographs will be taken throughout the event. So again, be aware of that. If those two things are not acceptable to you, we will be recording this event and you can watch it online. So we're not forcing you to be here to be photographed and be online. You could watch it later, but you are agreeing to those two things by being here. And we're actually a little bit early, but it does seem like, oh no, we're not. Dead on, well done. So it gives me really great pleasure to welcome you to this annual Beckly Lecture. Have many of you been to the Beckly Lecture before? Oh gosh, you're all old hands then. So you'll know it's not usually me that introduces the Beckly Lecture. I'm Jude Livermore, I'm head of mission, and I'm standing in at the moment because we don't have a head of the Joint Public Issues team at the moment, but more of that another time. But the Beckly Lecture takes place every year and has done since 1926. It was started by John Henry Beckly, left some money so that we could do it. And its function is this: to set forth the social implications of Christianity and to further the development of Christian sociology and the expression of the Christian attitude in reference to social, industrial, economic, and international subjects. So if you didn't think that's what you were doing, that's what you're doing this evening. That's what we're up to. Tonight's lecture, though, really is a first, and we're very excited to be having it. It's a subject that we haven't considered before in the Beckly Lectures. That's not entirely true. Back in 1940, we did consider something similar to it. I don't think, were any of you here in 1940? No. So it's pretty much a first, I think, for us. It's the first time we've invited a Jewish speaker, and we're very pleased to be able to do that. We know that you will be hospitable. We're pleased that Rabbi Nava was able to be with us and has been with us since the beginning of the conference. It was lovely to be able to welcome her as we welcomed all the ecumenical and interfaith guests. It was a privilege to be able to do that. And it's been a privilege to be hosting her for the conference. So she's really seen us at our best, and maybe today a little bit at our worst. I don't think I want to say very much more because I do want to hand over to her. She's going to tell you a little bit about herself, but if you don't know about her, you should definitely go onto the JPIT website and have a really good dig into all the exciting things that she has done in her past. But she is a woman of great integrity, of great wisdom, and she's going to say some things to us, I think, that are challenging. And Hannah and I were just praying together at the beginning of this evening, and we said, we really hope that people come without all the answers so that we can open our minds and our ears really to hear something new tonight, and maybe even all of us change our minds just a little bit. So maybe we'll see what God does. Rabbi Nava, I'm really, really pleased to be able to welcome you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to ask you to stand up. A prayer for humanity. Creator of all, King of peace, bless all who come into the world with physical health, health of the soul, and health of spirit. It is you who created us in your image. With love, you blew into us your spirit. Give us the wisdom to defeat violence from the earth which you created. Strengthen our hearts, protect us and save us. You are abounding in compassion and kindness. Make peace on earth and create happiness for the entire human beings. Let it be according to the verse, nation will not lift up swords against nation, nor will they learn war any longer. Amen. And so it shall be your will. Good evening. Shalom Salaam. Everyone who is here, I'm honored to be here with you for the 2023 Beckly Lecture and be among distinguished faith leaders. I was born in Israel to Jewish refugees from Egypt. My father, later on, was a UN diplomat. So during my childhood, I lived in various places throughout the world. And for the first time, I learned about human rights. I was in Africa, and I saw violation of rights. I was in South Africa, and I saw violation of rights. I grew up in a pre-Six-Day War country, which is very, very different from what it is today, without knowing anything about my neighbors across the Green Line. The 73 war shaped my life. Serving in a unit that used to receive the names of the fallen soldiers, the wounded soldiers, was an earthquake. And for the first time in my life, I asked myself whether there's no one on the other side for peace, another partner on the other side of the border. This was the beginning of my political involvement and engagement. I'm not a politician. I'm a spiritual leader. And I think that as faith leaders, we have a say in every topic that is rising around this globe. I'm active in different organizations, NGOs, such as Rabbis for Human Rights. I'm a member of this organization. Until 3 months ago, I was the educational and interfaith director. We are very active. I will explain a little bit later about our work. And we have 180 rabbis from all denominations, which is the only organization worldwide where Jews from all denominations cooperate together. Because human rights is universal. I'm also part of ALMAP, Alliance for Middle East Peace, which is an umbrella for 176 Palestinian and Israeli organizations trying to change the reality. I cooperate with any organization that is willing to bring peace and to end the violence in our region. I want to talk a little bit about what is going on in Israel and in Palestine. But first, I will bring three Jewish sources that are considered as the base of the Jewish approach to what is considered as a humanistic behavior towards all human beings. By the way, the Jewish tradition talks in terms of obligations, of responsibility, and not of rights. The concept of right is a concept that started in modern era. But when we read the Holy Scripture, we can see that we are obligated to fulfill any and every right for any human being that live on this earth. So the first verse that I would like, the first source, is from Genesis 1:27, where we read, "So God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them." Remember this. I'm sure that as faith leader, you know this verse by heart. The second source I would like to bring is from the Talmud, from a tractate called Sanhedrin, which is amazing because the same source we can find in Christian scriptures, in other words, and in the Quran, in the Muslim sources. And it is written, "It was for this reason that man was first created as one person, to teach you that anyone who destroys a life is considered by Scripture to have destroyed an entire world. Each one of us has the potential of becoming a whole world. So if we destroy one soul, we are destroying a whole world. And anyone who saves the life, it is as he or she saved an entire world." And also to promote peace among the creations. So these are two very important sources that are the base of a humanistic behavior in our world. And the third one is from a commentary on the Bible, and Rabbi Akiva, who is a scholar from the 2nd century, commented that anyone who spills blood is considered to have lessened the image of God, because it is written, "He who spills human blood, his blood shall be split." Why is it so? Because God created man in his own image. So from these three sources, we can deduce different things. First, the creation of human being, male and female, is universal. God didn't create the Jew, the Israelite, the Christian, the Muslim, or any other national ethnicity, but special. Okay? It's not like the fish that he creates. It's not like the animals. No, humanity was created single, including gender equality. This is very important because most of our texts are gender-oriented, and not, in order to find the equality, we really have to comment and to dig it from behind the, the words, the meta-language. And also these three sources explain that why human life is sacred. I want to add that in the Jewish tradition, nothing is sacred but human life and time. No land, no stones, no buildings. The human life is sacred and the time is sacred. When Shabbat is entering, we are sanctifying the Shabbat, the day of where we rest, where everyone should rest. Okay? So we don't worship not land, not stones, and not monuments, according to the Jewish humanistic approach. And this is very different from what we see these days in our region. I want to emphasize on this issue of the stones and the land. The land belongs to God. It is written. The land is mine. You are only sojourners here on this land. And that's why if you want to live on this land, you have to behave like human beings. So there is a very interesting story that you all know about Moses that is going to Sinai Mount in the desert to bring the tablets, not the iPad, the originals ones. And when he goes down, what he sees the Israelites dancing and worshiping the golden calf. And what he does, I mean, the great leader, the greatest leader, the educator, he breaks the stones, he breaks the tablet. Can't he explain what's going on? There is a God supremacy, God is transcendent. No, he breaks the stones because he understands that if he will deliver now the tablets, the Israelites will worship the stone and not the values that are written, that are engraved on the first tablet. Yes, then we had the second tablet. So what was important for Moses is that the Israelite understand what God is asking for us as human beings. What kind of a behavior? Don't kill. Don't steal. You shall not covet your neighbor's house or his cattle, nor anything is his. Again, I will refer to the situation now in Israel and Palestine in the light of these values. This is part of our theology when we come to take action facing violation of human rights in general and in particular in the occupied territories. As a Jewish woman, as a rabbi, as a believer, I am deeply attached to the land of the patriarchs and the matriarchs. My forefathers and foremothers used to live there. They are buried there. No one will take my attachment to this land. But this fact does not give me the right to steal without mercy the poor man's land, and do so in the name of God and in the name of the Torah. No one will tell me I don't have the right to live as a free citizen in this land. And with the same breath, I say no one will tell the Palestinian people they don't have the right to live as free citizens in their own independent state and on this same land. In the land of our matriarchs and patriarchs live today other people who have the right to the land and the right to live in dignity and freedom. These people have the right to make a living and to educate their children according to their religion, their culture, their language, their tradition. We have just marked 56 years of occupation in the West Bank. I call it Judea and Samaria. This is my tradition. But yes, it's the West Bank, and it's an occupied territory. When I use the word occupation, while taking Israelis, they don't really understand the concrete meaning of this word, nor the Europeans or the Americans. Since 99% of Israelis have never been in the West Bank, they don't know the daily reality of a Palestinian. It's only when I take them to Hebron or to the villages in the north of the West Bank to meet with Palestinians, and they describe to them their daily life without saying even one time the word occupation, just to describe what they endure. They understand, the Israelis understand the meaning of these words. It's the same for the European and it's the same for the Americans. Unless you see, you go to the village, you cross a checkpoint, you see the way the Palestinians are living in their villages when on the hills, and I will talk a little bit about the outposts, okay? They don't understand what it means, occupation. It's behind the Black Mountains. No one is going to the settlements. No one is going to Nablus or to Ramallah. Okay? First of all, it's forbidden, according to the Israeli law, for an Israeli to be in Area A, which is under Palestinian control, military and civil control. So in order to understand what it means, occupation, in order to understand what it means, apartheid, okay? I don't use these words. These words will push me out of their sight. They don't, they say, apartheid is for South Africa in the 70s. We're in the 21st century. What are you talking about? But it's only when I explain that when a Palestinian wants to complain, there's a law for the Palestinian and a law for the settlers. A law for the Palestinians and a law for the Israelis, for the Jewish Israelis, okay? They understand that there are two different systems of law. And in this way, they can understand maybe the word apartheid. So we tend to say that the actual government is the worst one we ever had. It's true, but let's not forget. All our governments didn't take actions in order to stop the occupation. All of them, since '67 up to today. Of course, we had a short golden age in the early 90s of the previous century, of course, during the Oslo Treaty. But this short golden age followed by the assassination of our Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, which stopped completely the process, the peace process. And since then, more and more settlements were expanded in the occupied territories. And since the Israeli government committed to the Americans, not to the Europeans, not to build new ones, 165 outposts were erected across the West Bank, from Samaria in the north to South Hebron Hills in the south. These outposts are settled by young people, 15, 16, 17-year-old, delinquent, juvenile. And we call them the youth on the hill, or the hill's youth, Na'arei Hagvaot. Today, I don't call them the youth on the hills, but the pogrom on the hills. They have dropped from every educational system. They were a minute before being arrested for robbery, it's delinquent juvenile. And all the outposts are on the top of the hills, where on the side hills you have the Palestinian villages and the olive groves. An outpost is not viable without another settlement that is nearby. Electricity, water, supplies. You cannot live just like this on a hill without having a support. So when the settlers say, oh, we are not connected, it's not true, because it's a strategy, okay? The fire is turned to these youth, and they are terrible. They are acting like an odd militia, but they are supported by the settlement, the well-established settlement, the big settlements, and of course by the Israeli policy, the policy of the government of Israel. These young people, we're talking about thousands of them, are manipulated by adults. I would say they are manipulated also by fundamentalist rabbis, the same rabbis that gave the stamp of kashrut to assassinate Rabin. And they keep telling them, you are saving, by your acts, you are saving the Jewish people. And they believe in it, because finally they have a meaning to their life. They are protecting the Jewish people. And these people, they don't hesitate to harass the Palestinians. They started by uprooting olive trees in the olive groves to damage trees. And in the last 3 years, they started not only to attack, but also to attack Palestinians, of course, but also Jews. So in the last 3 years, when we go on the field, we are attacked, or we are stopped by the army. And I will, in a minute, tell you some anecdote about anecdote. It's not very funny, but what we launched it already 23 years ago, a campaign, the olive tree campaign. For more than 2 decades, I'm witnessing the development of violence in the occupied territories. For years, I proclaim we can no longer talk about left and right wing, but we can talk about Democrats and theocrats, those who wish to see Israel as a democratic state, and those who wish to see a theocracy and with a dictator on the top. Those are messianic, they have a messianic view of Judaism. For them, the kingdom of David should return to rule Israel. We should rebuild the temple on the Temple Mount, and the whole country should be run according to the Jewish law, the Orthodox Jewish law, of course, okay? So this is the ideology, and when I was talking about it 5 years ago, people told me, you are dreaming, we are talking about some insignificant, no. We have 2 parties like this in our government today. Messianic Jews, not the Messianic Jews that you know, okay? It's a new kind of Messianism, okay? So we have at least 2 ministers at the Knesset, and we have also a member of the Knesset, the Israeli parliament, that are advocating for Jewish supremacy. And they are trying to change the country. And this is really a confirmation of what I was saying a few years ago. Because this is exactly what we are experiencing right now in Israel. And of course, those two ministers are settlers. One from Kiryat Arba near Hebron, near the city of Hebron, and the other one in one of the settlements in Samaria. So what they want to do, they want, of course, to expand the Jewish population in the West Bank. So right a few days ago, they managed to receive the consent of our Prime Minister Netanyahu to build 4,500 new houses in the West Bank. Okay? I'm describing the reality as I am living it. Since the pandemic, there was a huge escalation in violence in the West Bank. I mean, we were all so preoccupied with this COVID that we didn't pay attention to what was going on in the West Bank. We were in closure. We were not able to travel and to see. And of course, there was an escalation. And just before the election, I was invited to give testimony at the Israeli parliament, and I gathered data of the attacks, and you see a difference of dozens of percentage in the number of attacks in the West Bank. And it's not only attacking a person, it's attacking his house, it's attacking his car. It's making the life of the people there very difficult. In February 26, those young people set fire in one of the villages of Hawara, which is in the north. It's 5 kilometers from Nablus, south. A week ago, they set fire to Jayus, another village. And 2 days ago, to Tormus Aya. I have pictures. I mean, those who wish I can send you pictures. I'm sending all the time, I'm sending pictures to the World Council of Churches, with whom I'm in touch in Geneva. So I don't tell stories, okay? This is the reality. And if you don't believe me, and don't believe me, just come and see. Come and visit and be with us during the harvest, during the tree planting. This is not a sporadic campaign. This is a policy of a government. The army is just a tool in the hand of politicians. And I would like to share with you an event I encountered last October, one of many, but I will take one because it is really representative of a lot of other events. Since 2002, as I told you, we are every October we go with Israeli volunteers to be the human shields protecting the Palestinian farmers and helping them to quickly pick all their olives. So we sit in advance with the Palestinian farmer because I don't want you to consider me, oh, this is the good Jew and we have bad Jews, okay? No, I'm doing it because it's my responsibility as a human being as a Jew, as a rabbi, it's my responsibility to answer all these evil actions that are taken by my people. Okay, I cannot say they don't belong to me. They are part of me, unfortunately. So we sit in advance with the Palestinians. They give us a list of the places they want to harvest their trees. And first of all, you don't ask yourself why a Palestinian should sit with me in order to give me the places where he wants to harvest. It's his land, so why I need to be in the middle? No, because he cannot enter as he wish on his land. And even if he can enter, he will be automatically attacked by those pogromists. So I feel that I have a responsibility to go and to serve as a human shield and to help him pick all the olives. And then we sit with the army. And this is a different saga. We say to the army exactly the days, the places. We sit with the maps and everything with the officers of the army, and we start the campaign. We start the first day, and we arrive every day in a different village, sometimes several villages. We are between 30, 50, sometimes a couple of hundreds Israeli volunteers, not only rabbis, but volunteers, Israeli volunteers, that are coming from across the country, from the north, from the south, from Tel Aviv, from Jerusalem. We hire buses and we go to the field. And here I am with over 30 volunteers in a village called Burin. Angelina knows this village very well. And to Bashar, one of the farmers. And Burin is a village, and Bashar, his house, is 300 meters from the outpost, which is on the top of the hill. And I arrive with my volunteers, and I said to them, okay, spread in the groves and start picking. Start working immediately. And, I don't know, 5 minutes pass, and we see a group of soldiers with the officer that arrive with a warning from the general. This is a closed military zone. My volunteers are all over the grove. They start shouting at the officer, and this is the last thing I want to happen. My goal, and I have a goal, to finish harvest up to the last olive on the trees. And I take the officer aside, and I tell him, listen, I see that the officer is wearing a kippah, so I understand that he is religious, okay? A religious Orthodox, not one of us. So I said to him, why are you coming to us? Because you are afraid of the people up? You know that you are coming to me because I'm a law keeper. Because I will not bash you and I will not attack you. And you know that they will if you go to them. So you're coming to me. So I said, but because you are here, there is violence. I said to him, but listen, if I'm not here and I don't finish picking all the olives, because the Palestinian, he cannot do everything by himself. Oh, he could have done it if he had more time. But now he has 3 days to finish the whole groves. He cannot. I mean, even if his family join him, it's impossible. Okay, I mean, we're talking about big olive groves on the side hills. And I said to him, you know that if I don't finish to harvest now, to pick all the olives, in the night, the settlers will come and they will steal the olives. And this is the bread for the children, because unless he picks all the olives, he sells some for olive oil, okay? This is the way he can nourish his children. Wow, it's difficult. Every time that I remember this situation, I mean, and it's one of many. It's one of many. And he keeps asking me, yes, but why are you doing this? And I respond, since it's my responsibility, not only from a Jewish perspective, but also from an international law. And I continued the discussion with him, and I said to him, listen, give me 2 hours. We're more than 30 people here with the Palestinian and his family. Give me 2 hours. We will finish to pick all the olives, and we will descend this hill. And I'm very convincing, probably. I'm also with the kippah, and this is something that is bothering him, and he probably want to ask me, what is this kippah on my head? And so I take him aside, and we continue the discussion. And I continue by citing Jewish sources to convince him to let us continue. And I say, you know, we have a scholar, Hillel, and Hillel used to say, be of the disciple of Aaron, loving peace and pursuing peace, loving mankind and drawing them close to the Torah. And he's really bothered that I'm citing, you know, Jewish sources. He's quite astonished of my Jewish arguments, because most of the Israelis, most of the organizations are not religious organizations, they are secular organizations. We're the only religious organizations that is dealing with human rights. And I stand close to him, and we talk about the situation, and at the end, he asked me, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Jerusalem. And I asked him, and where are you from? And he said, I'm from Karnei Shomron. Karnei Shomron, which is one of the first settlements, the ideological settlement in the West Bank. So you see, I reply, you cannot do your job properly, because you too are a settler. You too are one of them, and you identify with them. And this farmer, again, I repeat and I repeat, all he wants is to bring the bread to his children. This is something, the issue of children is very powerful, okay? When you talk about young children. And I continue, because I really, I was so mad after, because he's religious, he knows the text, Okay, anyway, we managed to finish the harvest and to go back home. I want just to mention one more event, which is very important. last July 4th, you know what's July 4th? Bulldozers arrived at the village of Khan el-Ahmar. Khan el-Ahmar is a village on the way to the Dead Sea. When you travel the Dead Sea, on the left and on your right, you see tents and you see a village, Khan el-Ahmar. They wanted to level the land and remove the members, regroupement, to group all the people from Khan el-Ahmar near Abu Dis. Abu Dis, which is a village, I mean, today it's a neighborhood, behind the wall, not inside. It's a village that was cut into two by the separation wall, in order again to expand a settlement. So I would like to bring you another source in order. It's very important for you to understand that what is going on right now in Israel is not a Jewish behavior. It's not a Jewish behavior according to our tradition. So again, in one of the commentary, Babakama, it's from the Talmud, it's written, a person who steals from a Gentile. Now, a Gentile here, it means a non-Jew in the language of ancient times, must return it to the Gentile. It is worse to steal from a Gentile than from a Jew, because the desecration of God's name. And this is an act of plunder. I mean, the way the bulldozers came, and this is why the High Court is so important, because at the last minute, the High Court gave order to stop the evacuation. And they said, you cannot move like this, people, you cannot destroy like this a village. And this is why, of course, those two ministers and our prime minister want to attack the High Court and to have a size of the High Court, to elect the judges, because they will do what, it will be a politicized High Court. It will be a court of Netanyahu and a member of the Knesset. So there is another rabbi who claim, a very big rabbi, Eliyahu Ish Shalom, that say, however, we have to reject it. It's not allowed to steal. It's not allowed to treat people like this. And he really put all his authority in order to prevent this. So what can you do in order to help us healing this violent region? You, I mean, as a church. You as faith leaders. First, you won't like it, but I will say it because I say what I think it's right to say. So when you condemn the occupation, and I think we should condemn the occupation, don't boycott Israel as a whole. My colleagues and I are Israel too. Criticize the policy of the Israeli government, but not the entire country. When you prove the occupation, please do it according to Leviticus 19:17. You shall not hate your kinfolks in your heart. You shall prove and reprove him. So do it with love and not with hatred. And since these last days, I heard so many times the word love. In your prayers, in our prayers, I heard the word peace in your prayers, in our prayers, okay? So when we criticize, we have to do it because we love somebody. If I don't love somebody, I won't criticize him. I couldn't care less. But when I love somebody and I see that his or her behavior is wrong, what? Okay. So when you boycott Israel, you are not helping. Not the Palestinians and not us. You wish to help? Use a positive language. Develop programs that brings people together. Don't receive Israeli representatives and officials and advocate for those who are advocating Jewish supremacy. And I want to tell you that when Bibi Netanyahu was here and was received only 10 minutes by your prime minister, the board of deputies, the Jewish board of deputies, refused to receive him. When Minister Smotrich was here, the board of deputies refused to receive him. So if you want to do something good, so put pressure on your government. I know it's much more difficult to put pressure on your representatives than to boycott me. Okay? Okay. So, strengthen the Palestinians by joining us in the olive harvest or in the planting of trees. My dear friend Angelina did it. She was my partner, together with other faith leaders, and she can tell you how we are operating in the field. This is the moment to thank you, Angelina, for being there for us, for your support and your positive action in Israel and in Palestine. And I'm waiting to welcome David this coming fall, I hope so, to continue together our struggle for justice and justice for all. And as it is said, justice, justice you shall pursue. It is written in Deuteronomy. Justice, justice we will pursue until Zion shall be redeemed by justice, and those in her by righteousness. Amen.
Thank you. Just taking instructions from the very helpful sound people at the back. Is that right? I have turned it on. Can you hear me? I just want to say a huge, huge thank you once again to Rabbi Nava. Can we just give her another... It was my privilege to meet Rabbi Nava in Jerusalem when we were out visiting the Methodist Liaison Office, which is where Angelina worked and where Dave will work. The Methodist Liaison Office is a joint endeavour with the World Methodist Council, the General Board of Global Ministries of the United Methodist Church and Methodist Church in Britain. And it's a real hidden treasure of the Methodist Church in Britain. And you're all very welcome to go, though maybe not all at once.
Yeah.
And we can talk to you about that later. But I'm imagining that there are questions that people would love to ask. And we are privileged because Rabbi Nava has promised that she will spend some time in conversation with us now, answering some of those questions honestly. This is a place where we can ask those difficult questions, I think.
Yes.
I'm going to remind you once again, though, that we are live streaming and that we need to be careful and kind in how we speak with one another. But Hannah, I think, is going to do some running about with a microphone. Is this true? Or are people going to come up to the microphone? Okay, if you've got a question you would like to ask, would you please line up neatly behind Hannah? If you're unable to make your way towards Hannah, if you sort of wave at her, she'll come and move people out of the way. Not quite sure how she's going to do that. Does anybody have a question? Yes, can you come up to the front? Is that all right? I'm sorry to ask.
Thank you for reaffirming in me the beauty of Judaism. I ask a question. The International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance definition of anti-Semitism, IHRA, was considered by the Methodist Conference in 2018 with a view to endorsement of the use, officially, of that definition. The conference declined to do so. A feeling that was expressed was that endorsing the IHRA would make criticism of the state of Israel, and we've heard something of that criticism tonight, an anti-Semitic act, conflating the criticism with anti-Semitism. There have been Jewish voices supporting that Methodist decision, and many more not supporting it. Would your body, with its glorious commitment to human rights and international law, have a declared view about IHRA? And thank you again.
I'm sorry, I didn't read this declaration. But if I understand what you just said is that you're trying to make any kind of a comparison between the Holocaust and what is going on now in Israel. No?
I'll try and explain.
Okay.
In order for us to act justly and to be kind to one another, we want to make sure that we, in all our discussions, are not in any way, or actions, are not anti-Semitic. There are many definitions of what that word means. One of the definitions, IHRA, is one. There's another one called the Jerusalem definition. We have a definition in our Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Handbook, which is the one that the Methodist Church has agreed. The question is, and which I think you might not be able to answer if you don't know the difference between the definitions, what would your view be on the IHRA definition?
I first of all, listen, it's very intuitive, okay? Since I didn't, and I like to be serious and to respond to something that I know, and I can have an opinion, okay? But intuitively, when you put one next to the other, Holocaust and criticizing Israel, this is not a very good idea. Put the Holocaust aside, because in Israel, the issue of Holocaust is very sensitive. no matter where the Jew came from. He can come from North Africa, having nothing to do with the Holocaust, but the Holocaust in his subconscious, in his collective memory. So if develop something else, try to find another definition without Holocaust. Because this is automatically, when I hear Holocaust and criticizing Israel, and no, criticize Israel as is. Don't try to find some historic support, okay, in order to criticize the policy of Israel. You're entitled to criticize. Again, it's prove and reprove your fellow. Okay? This is a commandment. But how do you do it? What language are you using? Is it a language that shut down the ears of the Israelis? This is not what you want to achieve. So I think personally, and again, I will go through this declaration, and even if there are more than one declaration, I would like to analyze them and. Can
I just make? No. I thank you for your response. To clarify, the Methodist Church, in resisting affirmation or confirmation of the usage of IHRA, was of course not in any way intruding the aspect of the horror and the enduring collective memory of Holocaust. If I may quickly say, with my own children, I took them to Dakar, not to Disneyland, in order to make a discovery of the reality of Christian persecution of your people, of which we must be eternally repenting. But I simply say that we have not found a definition which can be twisted to say criticizing Israel is anti-Semitic.
No.
We've not found that helpful.
No. Okay.
And I would sense that you don't either, because listening to you tonight, I could have said you're anti-Semitic from a perspective, an evil perspective.
I don't think so, because I don't consider that. I'm not criticizing Israel. I'm criticizing the policy of Israeli governments, and not only what we call the right-wing government. When the Labour was governing Israel, I had also criticism towards it. Okay, exactly. So, but don't introduce the word anti-Semitism in this discourse. I mean, you can criticize the policy of Israel without being accused of anti-Semitism.
That right.
And it depends the language that you are using.
If people have comments, it would be really helpful if you want to come to the side, and we'll have some further discussion. John, I'm going to ask the person behind you, because the first voice was male, and I'm going to go for a female voice. I'm not. If that's all right.
Great.
Thank you. Sorry.
I'm not a cradle Christian. I was raised as a Zionist. But I was raised as a Zionist in the mold of Theodor Herzl, whose vision for a Jewish state in Israel was for a secular state. And if my recollection serves me well, the Basic Laws of 1948 also posited a secular state. What's gone wrong? Toda rabba.
Okay, listen, this whole issue of Zionism is, in my view, is passé. Because we have a state, and we have a strong state, and we have one of the strongest army in the world. Okay? So for me today, the definition of Zionism is very restricted. And I said it, it's my right to live in this land, but at the same time, and with the same breath, I said the Palestinians have also the right to live on this same land. So we need to find a compromise. And for me, when I talk to my colleagues, the Palestinians, I say, let's take the example of Abraham, the father of our nations, all the nations. What he did, he took Lot and he said, listen, let's not fight, we're family. If you go right, I will go left. If you go left, I will go right. So we need to find a compromise, And I think that the majority from both sides want a compromise. But you hear only the fundamentalists from both sides. And you know the biggest sin, our biggest sin, for 56 years, that we didn't act, that we didn't speak, that we are very happy to live in a prosperous Israel. We didn't see the other side. And the fact that people are silent, this is the biggest sin, okay? And what is happening right now in Israel, okay? It's the mainstream. It's officers in the army. It's people from the security systems, okay? That are demonstrating in the streets because they were silent for so many decades. So criticize, it's important, but how do you do it? Okay?
John.
I want to ask you about how you see a possible solution. You said about the occupation and ending the occupation, but the traditional answer to that is a two-state solution, which, from having lived in the West Bank and been there on many occasions, it's very difficult to see how you could create a two-state solution. You may well know Rabbi Hanan from Roots, who speaks about two nations, one homeland.
Yes, he's part of our organization as well.
Now, he talks about two nations, one homeland. I can see advantages in that, but I can also see huge problems in it. What's your vision for a solution for the future?
I said I'm not a politician, but I'm doing politics. I'm not a politician. So from my analysis, I'm for the two-state solution. First, because the Palestinians want it. They need to experience how it is to be independent, how to have a self-ruling. It's going to be very difficult. If we don't act now, it will be impossible to have a two-state solution. Because when you drive along the Road 60 and you see all those signs, come and live in, but I'm very optimistic. Why? After the Second World War, there were 2 million Germans that were sent back to Germany. We are talking about 500,000, 500,000 settlers, that's all. A state can do a disengagement, like Sharon did in the Gaza Strip. But if we don't do it now, it will be impossible. If we let the settlers to expand the settlements, to build new ones, it will be impossible. And I think that for the sake of Israel, it's important to have a two-state solution. Because otherwise, if it's a one-state solution, you will have citizens that are first grade, and you will have the Palestinians without citizenship, because no one will give 3 million Palestinians in the West Bank and 2 million in Gaza. I mean, demography, it's 50-50. And that's why, for me, I see the solution of Abraham. Let's share. I mean, but let's divide. And of course, a lot of things we will have to share. For example, in East Jerusalem, okay? You're not going to build a new system of sanation. It costs millions of dollars, okay? So we will have to find a way to share on economic level, okay? But a one-state solution will be a disaster. It will be a disaster mainly to the Palestinians.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. And thank you particularly for describing the work helping with the olive harvest, because it's such an incredibly practical action, and it's bringing people together. You know, it's wonderful. And thank you for the invitation to come and help. But I've now got a question I'm not particularly proud of, but I think the whole world has been shocked at the rise in settler violence and the impunity with which that action seems to be. There was always a feeling, I think, that Jews and internationals would be reasonably protected from that. But I'd be feeling a little scared about going to this olive harvest. And I just wondered if you had a reflection on whether things have changed for this year. I know you can't give any guarantees, but it's quite a thing to do now, I guess. Thank you.
What is safe? Yeah. Death is safe. I mean, it's a price that you have to pay in order to do an action. Yes, you can be attacked. I mean, these last years, ask Angelina, she was almost stabbed by a settler. Yes, it's...
Tried to run me over.
So, yes, it's violent, okay? So, we're not going to do it? No way.
Thank you. I hear you. I think we're inspired by your courage, but yeah, it's different this year than, you know, it's getting worse, isn't it?
Listen, 3 years ago, an 80-year-old rabbi, Rabbi Moshe, was his arm was broken. His head, they opened. It's the Red Cross. He was in the field alone. They went. It can happen. And we had 3 internationals also that were, okay, we are taking all the measures, we are trying. But we cannot promise you that for 100% everything will be, it's a risk, okay?
Thank you.
And when you want to do something, an action, you have to take risks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Your example of non-violent resistance is inspirational. We've got a couple more questions.
Thank you, ma'am. And I was particularly interested in what you said about apartheid earlier in your conversation, and how you acknowledge that. A previous questioner, Brian Brown, who comes from South Africa and lived through apartheid, has written this book called Apartheid South Africa, ! Apartheid Israel, ? And you actually answered the question. We'd very much like you to have a copy of this if you would be
With
happy
pleasure.
to receive it. It'll cost them £10 each, but you can have a free one. But I then wanted to take up what you said about the boycott, divestment,
Yes.
sanctions movement. We do not want to boycott you. We would like you to come as often as possible here. But there are different views, of course, within Israel Palestine about this. And the message we hear from Palestinians is that this is a weapon that, you know, unfortunately, they feel necessary in this situation. So the two arguments, I think, on the other side for us, from outside, and we appreciate there are different perspectives inside and outside, are what are the most oppressed people there asking from us, which is the Palestinians, and also what is the government of Israel most active about outside here in the West. And they do seem to be very active in lobbying against the BDS movement, and in particular there's a law going through Parliament at the moment telling local authorities that they're not allowed to do this, and we feel the Israeli government is involved in that, shall we say. So hopefully the dialogue can continue from inside and outside, and what's the best means of changing things. Thank you.
First of all, I was twice in South Africa as a rabbi. I served there in Johannesburg and in Pretoria, so I have a lot of friends there. I really like this country. I don't think apartheid stopped in South Africa, but this is my opinion. It's not our subject, but it was very important for me to tell you what I think. Apartheid, a boycott will not succeed, and I will explain why. And there are several reasons why the boycott will not succeed, and is not succeeding. First of all, because we are not in the 70s, we are in the 21st century, the second decade of the 21st century. The reality is totally different. We're living in a global village. You don't know where the product is coming from. You don't know. You think you know. A few years ago, the Palestinians built a factory to pack products in order to ship them to Europe, to America, to China. The settlers are bringing their products, and the Palestinians are packing the products, and they put a label made in Palestine, and you don't know where the product is coming from. When you boycott Israel, you don't boycott the policy of the government. You are not boycotting our representatives. You are boycotting the civilians, okay? And this is, now I'm talking as a rabbi, in Judaism, boycott is something which is very, very serious. You don't boycott. You find other ways, but you don't boycott. You don't excommunicate. Because this is something that you use really when there is a catastrophe, okay? And I don't use, personally, I don't use negative actions in order to solve a conflict. If you want to be a mediator, okay, the first rule for a mediator, don't take side. Be neutral. You are not neutral. Now, it depends which Palestinians you approach. You approach probably a certain current of Palestinians. You don't approach the people that I approach, that are against the boycott, the BDS. BDS will not succeed. It will not succeed. It's not. How many years you have the BDS? It didn't affect like this the state of Israel, the economy of Israel. You know what's affecting now the economy of Israel? the demonstrations, hundreds of thousands of Israelis that are fighting for democracy, and Israelis who are taking their businesses outside of Israel. This will affect Israel. This will affect probably the occupation. We are not yet there, okay? But people start, and we see it in the demonstration, that people raise banners, there's no democracy with occupation. We start seeing it in our, this will have an effect, but not the BDS. The Israeli economy up to now is very strong, and again, you don't know where the product is coming from. It was planted here, it was raised there, it was packed there, and it was shipped from another place. Okay? So we are not in the 70s. It was very effective in South Africa, very effective. But because we didn't have all the media that we have today, the internet, it's a global world. So we cannot use methods and means that were used, I don't know, 40 years ago. We are not living in the same world. How many of you, by the way, have a USB key? USB key, you know? How many of you? Yeah, it's an Israeli invention. Are you going to, not to buy a USB key? Can you live without a USB key today? I mean, my lecture for today, if I didn't have a USB key, I'm not traveling with papers, okay? Pacemakers. It's an Israel. Try to find positive ways to solve this conflict. And I strongly believe that if the international community was united in order to solve the conflict, it would have been solved years ago. Okay? Years ago.
Rabbi, thank you so much for tonight. And as people of faith, we are called to the discipline of hope.
We talked about it yesterday.
So your hope, where is it in terms of the discipline that you have as a faith leader to work for hope in your context?
Every time that I go to the West Bank and that I work together with people, farmers, and children get to know an Israeli that is not a soldier, this is the hope, the young generation, okay? And this is where we have to be much more active. And this is why I'm so lucky. My son, my old son, my first one, is very much involved in Seeds of Peace. He's one of the senior directors there. And what he's doing now, he's bringing young Palestinians together with young Israelis, okay, to create joint projects, to get to know each other. Not only in the States. Well, it's very easy to sit near a lake, you know, with all the facilities. It's a neutral place. No, in the territories, inside Jerusalem. And this is the way. We have to educate both our population that this conflict must come to an end. And if we don't do it with the young generation, it will continue. Because when I see the farmer that takes his son and he say, you see this woman, okay? She is for peace, okay? She is not a soldier. You don't have to be afraid of her. Because when they see us coming into, the kids are afraid, because all the image that they have image of a soldier with a gun. So when we come and we meet with the children and with the women, and this is also something, status of women, that we're not talking about it, but there is a lot of work to do in this field among the Palestinian society. But this is their problem, okay? My responsibility as a Jew, as an Israeli, as a human being, it's my responsibility to see that the rights are not violated and that each one can live according to his or her way of life. Okay? So my hope is the young generation.
Rabbi, thank you so very, very much for this evening. I don't stand here as any kind of expert. Some people have spoken who've been engaged in these issues for their whole lives. I haven't. But back in 2013, when I was serving as president of the conference, a group of Methodists and Jews traveled together. We went together to Israel and into the occupied territories. Yeah. It wasn't an easy trip. It was in the context of the conference having very difficult conversations about BDS, amongst other things. But the aim of that trip was that we actually reflected together. And I learnt a huge amount. We met with Palestinian officials, we met with Israeli officials, we met with people working for peace, both Palestinians and Israelis. We met with academics, and this was all in the space of 3 days.
Yes.
And there was a lot of reflection on it afterwards, it recorded in blogs and all sorts of things. But the important thing about it was that we listened to one another and reflected together. And we've gone our different ways, and different things have happened. But I always remember that as a time of deep listening to one another, which was hugely, hugely beneficial. And you've given us some of that this evening, because we've been able to listen to you deeply. So for me, the hope is in goodwill and listening, and yes, there were obviously action as well, and going to the olive harvest and all sorts of other things. But I just want to say thank you for giving us another opportunity actually for deep, deep listening. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have the privilege of asking a question, I think, because,
Go ahead.
I should take it. I've heard you probably picked up while you're here that as a Methodist people, we disagree over lots of things, but we disagree over some things particularly to do with the region where you live. We disagree over BDS. We disagree over the use of the word apartheid. We disagree over what we think anti-Semitism is and the definitions that it holds. And I've heard you say to me, to challenge me, you challenge me, to don't export the conflict. There's enough of it in the land. And I wonder if you've got anything to say to us as how we don't make the conflict here and so enable peace to be built somewhere else.
Okay. I think most people are ignorant about the origin of the conflict, real things that happen throughout the years. And I think that what you can do is bring together Muslims, Jews, and Christians and find a common ground. Speak the discourse must be with the same values, humanistic values. And in each religion, there is a voice, a humanistic voice, and there is a racist voice. There is an inclusive voice and an exclusive voice, okay? So if you can find here a language, a discourse where you emphasize the values, the common ground, okay? It can help a lot, because tomorrow, if something happened in Gaza, okay, you build such a relationship between Muslims, Christians, and Jews that you say, wait a minute, okay? We're not living there, okay? Let's deal with, first of all, let's deal with the problems that we encounter here in England. And I heard a lot during these 3 days of challenges that you have as a church. So first of all, try to bring together the different communities that live here in the UK, okay? And also the second thing, that this is something that I started doing 2 years ago, groups that are coming to Israel and Palestine, I developed a week of geopolitical tours. So I take them to the Gaza Strip to understand what's going on in Gaza. No one knows, okay? I didn't know, unless I went to inquire and to read and to interview people from Gaza via Zoom. We're lucky we have Zoom today. To take them to, they heard about Hawara. I had a group from Belgium, Muslims, Christians, and Jews, okay? I took them to Hawara. They met with the mayor of Hawara, where they set fire in the village, okay? They understood. I explained the geopolitical landscape all around, what's happening, why it is happening like this, okay? So this is something that you have congregations, you have people around you. You are influential people among your congregations. So it's also, I think, your challenge to educate these people. Not only what's going on here in England, but also what's going on around the globe. I mean, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is one of the smallest in the world. It's one of the longest, but it's one of the smallest. Look what's going on in Ukraine. Look what's going on in Afghanistan, in Iran, in Yemen. I mean, in Syria. It's crazy. I mean, in Syria, you have 4 million refugees. Refugee camps in Jordan, in Turkey. I mean, so let's also proportions, okay? I know the conflict in the Middle East is so many people are interested because it's the Holy Land, because it's the land where 3 religions have a claim, okay? So, but we can say, okay, this is mine and it's not yours. This land is my land, this land is your land, okay? Like the song, the American song, okay? No, this land is even not our land, because according to the scripture, the land belongs to God. And if we don't behave according to the commandments, according to a humanistic behavior, the land will vomit us. And the two exiles of the Jewish people, it was because of that behavior. So I hope I answered your question.
I think you did. Thank you.
And
I just want to do a couple of adverts while
No,
I've got you.
so-
and then I'm going to let you have the
yeah,
last word, because
okay.
you definitely deserve the
Okay,
last word.
because
But
I
let me do
have
the adverts
a last
first.
prayer that I wish to.
The adverts, friends. The Joint Public Issues team is a not hidden gem. but we could do with digging it up more often, I think. It's an amazing thing, the Joint Public Issues team. There are members of the Joint Public Issues team here today. Please do make contact with them if you're not on any of their mailing lists, or if you haven't been to the website, you should definitely have a look. If you are interested in visiting the region, there are different ways you can do it. The Christian Aid stall is here, and Christian Aid often take groups, and there's information there. Or you can talk to on the connectional team stand, register your interest, and we'll get in touch with you. But we have the Methodist Liaison Office, and if you were interested in bringing a group, we can sort those things out. We also have Living Christianity in the Holy Land, which is an annual visit that goes usually in January every year. And again, if you register at the connectional team stand, we will make sure that you get information about that. None of you were to go and do anything in the olive harvests in the name of Methodism, because you might get arrested and then we might be sued. But if you do it in your own names, that's just fine. And we can obviously put you in touch with the right people. But I don't say I said anything. Matt, maybe we could take that off the actual feed. We're hugely grateful to you. We will give you the last word, I promise. Yeah. But before we give you the last word, could we give you a round of applause? Thank you.
Thank you. So I would like you to rise again and to give hands. Great, thank you. Source of peace, ruler of peace, grant peace to your people Israel, and let peace spread among all your creatures, so that there may be no hatred, jealousy, competition, or victory among us. Let there be only great love and peace among us all, so that we may all gather together, each with their fellow, speaking to each other, learning the truth from each other. Allahumma anta salam wa minka salam, Adon HaShalom, Barchenu Bashalom, source of peace, bless us with peace. Amen.